Hello and welcome to Creator Toolbox. This is the show where we give you ServiceNow developers the tools you need in order to do your ServiceNow development, build custom apps using App Engine, and all of those things. I'm excited about today's show. And joining me today is Lisa. Lisa, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Lisa Holenstein. I'm a Senior Outbound Product Manager for the ServiceNow platform. I'm located in Germany. I'm super excited to be here today.
Thanks, Lisa. And my name is Brad Tilton. I am a senior developer advocate with the developer program here at ServiceNow. I have been developing on the platform since 2008. And today we are going to be talking about ATF and custom UI testing through the automated test framework. So Lisa, I think we have a pretty good plan, but what are we going to be looking at today?
All right. You've seen my colleague Daniel, I think it was last week, and he already showed you how to create your own custom test steps in order to test your integration hub actions. And today we're going to focus on custom UI pages, but also service portal widgets. So I have prepared a little bit for the session today. I have a UI page with a simple input field that we're going to test. And I also have a ServiceNow portal widget embedded on a test page. And I wanted to show a couple of the new features that we had in Quebec when it comes to custom testing.
Awesome. That
Right.
sounds great. Are you ready to go ahead and do screen share?
I am ready. I have to find the right window to make sure it shows up nicely.
All right. I think that looks good.
Right. Okay. So as advertised, today we're going to test a UI page. I have prepared a simple page. It doesn't do much, but what it does is it has an input field. And because in the past, we'd have the issue that if you have, for example, dynamic inputs, this could be in, for example, forms from surveys or something. There are situations where the ID, the identifier of your input field, is dynamic. So it could change all the time. And to simulate this, we have this wonderful generate random number thing in here that creates as a random ID for our input. So what this looks like on a UI page is we have an input field, which is awesome. And I can inspect this input field and find out that the input ID is some random long sys-ID. And if I refresh the page, it is a different random long input page. And that can be a big problem if you want to identify the right inputs or buttons or whatever that you want to click for your custom testing. So how do we solve this? In Quebec, I think we added an attribute that is called sn-atf-id. And you can actually add this to your buttons and your inputs and whatever. So this is what we already have in the configuration for this page. And this one will show up when you create the tests. So let's go ahead and try this. We want to test our custom page. What do we need to do? We create a first custom test. Give it a name and save. And then what we want to do is we add a custom step. Now, testing UI pages is a little annoying because unfortunately, we only have an open service portal page step here, but no open UI page. So to work around this, we're going to use the open an existing record. This is this step. And now we're actually going to open the configuration for this thing. So we go to UI pages. And then we'll go and look up this record, which starts with $. This is my UI page. And just like the view that we had before, we now have to click the try it button to open it. So it looks a little weird, but this is how it works at the moment. Of course, if you watched last week's session with Daniel, you might be able to create your own custom step to do this now. So that is one of the options that you have. And the button we're looking for is try it. This doesn't work. Come on, give it to me. I know you want it. There you go. Okay, so first step testing this. We want to run the test. We get a new client test runner, and we want to make sure that the UI page is actually showing up.
I like the little trick of opening the UI page with the try it button.
Yeah. All right. Now we've seen the input show up real short over here. And when we switch back to the run test, we can see it was successful. Now, we don't have a test step to say, fill up this one button, but we can use the custom UI test steps here and say, I want to set a specific component value because I don't know which components are on my page yet. I have to retrieve them first. So that's the next step that I'm doing. It'll actually use my custom, my client test runner again, and we'll do the steps again. And once it's done, it'll give me the option to choose the component that is on the page. So if I hit next and scroll down, I now have my components available. And here's the good thing about the tag that we added to the component configuration. So in the tooltip of the text input, you can see it says identify me in brackets. That is the tag. So we can now identify the correct field that we want to set here. Put on some text. And then, of course, as a next test step, we want to make sure to validate that this state has been set. We don't need to retrieve the components again because we haven't made any changes. It still knows which components are on this page, but if there were any changes, you might want to do that again. So now we have the text input. Oh, this is component state. That is not the step I wanted. I wanted component value validation. All right. Again, I can choose my component. I can make sure it's the right one. And then I can validate that it's hello world and submit. Run this test once more. And that's about all you need to know for custom UI pages. You can explore the pages, find out what is in there, which components are there, and then you can start testing those.
So the problem that attribute is solving is that the ID of the element would change every time the page loads. So when you hit retrieve components, you'd get the component back, but then it would only work for that session, right? The next time you tried to do it, it wouldn't be able to find that one because it's using the ID.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. To find out which components are actually testable, we have a manual page inspector. And in here, you have the option to choose from different page types. For example, we can use UI pages or service portal. For the next one, I'm going to check out a page on the service portal. So I have this simple widget. It's on a page. It calculates some values. So I have this calculator thing, and I can give it, say, this is a 3, this is a 5. If I hit the plus button, it'll tell me the result is an 8. If I hit the minus button, it'll give me a -2. So if we're adding, it doesn't really matter much which is which, right? With addition, it's the same whether we say 3 plus 5 or 5 plus 3. It's not quite the same if we subtract. And here again, looking at the component, the widget in the inspect frame, we will see that both of them are just inputs and they have some name and some number, but we don't necessarily know which is which. But that's very important when we want to try and test this. So to do this in the ATF, we can inspect this page and make sure that all of the components we want to look at are actually usable within ATF or testable with ATF custom test steps. So the page inspector will open up the widget, the portal page, and it will already list all of the components that it discovered on my page. It'll mark them in colors when I hover over, but I can also use my target crosshairs onto a specific field that I want to interact with. And it'll also give me info on what steps I can use for this component. So I can say I want to set this or get the value. I want to check whether it's disabled or anything. Unfortunately, right at the moment, we don't have this sn-atf tag yet in here, but I'm sure it's on the roadmap, or at least I'll make sure it will be on there because we want to know which is the tag, right? And then we can actually go ahead and set this for test purposes. And it'll also set those values. So this page inspector makes sure that we know what we're getting into, and we know that it's possible to interact with those buttons and input fields in our testing. Right, so much for the page inspector. So anything you can interact with here will be interactable in ATF.
And so the page inspector is just there to make sure that what you want to test is testable, so you're not clicking around trying to build your test and it's not working.
That's right. Right now, so as of the Quebec release, we don't support now experience pages for ATF, but that's definitely at the top of our priority list to add in the future. So right now we can only test service portal pages, custom UI pages, standard lists and forms, and I think this one this one will also go for custom pages like the knowledge page or something. All right, I see a question in the chat that is, how do you use ATF for testing embedded lists? That is unfortunately not possible at the moment. So embedding related lists in the form is currently not covered. You can only test the list being there if it's in the related lists section. That is unfortunately at the moment, it's not in there. All right, let's go and test our calculator page. I have actually prepared this one to make sure that we test this widget without an identifier. So right now, if I open the service portal page, in this step, I need to choose which portal this opens up in. So I may have different views in different portals. And then I open the specific page. I can click on retrieve components on any of those custom UI steps. So if I have refreshed anything or need to make sure that my custom step retrieves the right components, I may do this on any of those custom steps. So that'll, just like before, run the test in my client test runner and make sure that it sees all the components that are on the page. Here, just like we saw in the inspect side, on the inspect side in the browser, we have absolutely no way to identify whether this range input or this range input is the first or the second one in our page. So if we were to set those to 3 and 5, and we expect this to be the first one and this the second, and then we hit this subtract button, we would expect this test to result to -2, but it doesn't. So you can already see my last test here wasn't successful. So if I go back to my test and run this, it'll open up the page, enter my values, but it'll enter the 5 in the first one and the 3 in the second one, which results to 2 instead of -2. And therefore my test will fail. So how do we solve this? Actually, it is the same as before with the custom UI page. In that case, I have created a copy of this thing, and we can check out the widget in the editor and find out that there's also the same tags. So whenever you create your widgets for the forms, consider adding the tag to the inputs or buttons or whatever, so that whenever you want to test against those widgets, you already know what their name or identifier is. So this is just a copy of the page, a copy of the widget, and I just added this tag in the HTML, the attribute. Now what do? We create a copy of this test and call this with identifier. And then save this. And now I need to retrieve the changed components. So in my copy, I can hit the button, say retrieve components. It'll run the test once to make sure that the components are there and which components are there. It'll still run into an error, but what it will achieve is it'll get me the updated components. So next time I open this page, this test step, I can go ahead and again look at my components once they load and find out that this one, I think I have to refresh. Oh no, you know what I didn't do? I should switch to the right portal page, right? Because I didn't do that. I have to call up the correct portal page and retrieve the components for that one.
Ah, okay.
I just copied. It opened the same page. That won't change anything to the components. All right. So we're still having the wrong result because we haven't checked the test step yet, haven't done any changes to that one yet. But now that we open this one, the second step, we will find there are more entries and they are in the page area calculator ATF and not calculator. So now we can see that this one has a tooltip of input 1 and this one has the tooltip input 2. Come on, show the tooltip. No, you can do it. There you go. And then the third input is the result. So now we can make sure that we set input 1 to 3 and input 2, this one, to 5. And when we run this test last time, hopefully last time, it should be successful. That looks awesome. That is precisely what we expected. Now that we know which component is which input is the right one, now our test is successful. So that is custom test paging, custom page testing for service portal pages and UI pages.
Nice.
Have you done this before, Brad?
I have not done the I haven't used that attribute before, the ATF attribute. So that's helpful. I think the last time I did a lot of ATF stuff was about 1.5 years ago, and so that wasn't out yet. So we do have a question in the chat. Is there a YouTube playlist or article to look at as guidance? And it looks like this is for creating a test you can use to upgrade to Quebec. And so I would say, generally, and I don't know if you agree with this, but generally, like, tests aren't specific. Like, you wouldn't create a test specifically for an upgrade. You would create a test to test a specific piece of functionality. And then the nice thing about the test is you can run it, before and after upgrades. You can run it before and after, patches, before and after you deploy new changes into production, if it affects that, right? So you can build it into your CI/CD process. There are some tools specifically for helping with upgrades, which Upgrade Center is definitely something to check out. We do have some, I think we did a CTB on Upgrade Center, but we do have some Upgrade Center resources out there on the ServiceNow Developer YouTube channel that I'll try to put in the show notes. But also, if you just go to our YouTube page where you are watching this right now and search for Upgrade or Upgrade Center, you should get some results there.
Right. Yes, I totally agree. The good thing about testing regularly is that you have some kind of baseline. You can make sure that your processes work and the apps that you have created are actually functional. And in Upgrade Center, we actually had this question in office hours we did a couple of weeks ago on ATF. And the question is, if I go to Upgrade Center, it'll give me I think it's a number of a percentage of how many tests have been successful. And somebody asked, well, how do I define which tests should show up there or should be run during an upgrade process? And what actually happens is Upgrade Center looks at the last automated test runs. So it checks out which of your tests have run, I think, in the past 30 days or something. So there's a time that you can configure, which is it'll look at, and it'll always look at the latest test execution per test suite, and then find out how many of them were successful. This gives you a baseline so that, like, after an upgrade and you run your test suite and find out one of them fails, and you're like, well, but did this one work before I upgraded, or is it failing because of the upgrade? So that'll be the point that Upgrade Center helps you with right there. So it just looks at any of the test runs that have been running. So I think it's a good practice to go ahead and schedule your tests or test suites to run, I don't know, maybe every other week or something. So to make sure to have current runs for each of your test suite.
Yeah, that's really important. If a test fails after an upgrade, but you don't know if it passed before the upgrade, then it's not really worth anything, right? So yeah, you want to make sure you're running it. A unit testing in ServiceNow question. Do you have a good answer for that one?
I unfortunately do not have a great answer on this. There is a Jasmine integration, so you can actually call up Jasmine configurations from your ATF. So it's totally possible to integrate those and use Jasmine within ATF, as far as I know. But I haven't done that myself yet.
Ooh, and then the next question is a good one. Saving test results in the instance. Do we have something coming out for that? I can't remember.
So for the test results in general, I think there might be some admin configuration on how long those stay in your instance. it's probably somewhere in the properties for the test retention on how long they stay there. But what I would say, if it comes to retaining test data between tests, there's something on the roadmap, but I cannot commit to when and how that'll be in the product. But we're looking at some form of technology to hand over created test values or result values from tests to another test in the same suite.
Yeah, I think this one may be around, if you want results, like if you run your testing all the time and you've got some, I just lost my, you run your testing all the time, you want to see like what's happening week over week over week. Eventually you're going to clone down over your test instance and lose that stuff. So, there are some options. You can put a clone, you can exclude that results table in the clone. And there's a really good Hi article that lists like all of the ATF tables. So I need to look that one up, but it'll have the right tables in the article. So you can preserve that data through clones, which I think is generally what people are doing there. It's hard to, the best practice is still to move all your tests into production. Just don't run anything in production because there's so many tables involved with ATF and so many things going on that it's pretty hard to preserve your tests in a sub-prod just because there's like so many tables involved.
Well, we're speaking of best practices around tests and ATF. I also want to call out our Platform Foundation Academy. We just started it last week with Andrew Barnes and I doing the initial Academy session, and the next one will be next week, Thursday. That is July 22nd. And we're doing this Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time or 6 p.m. Central European Summer Time. So be sure to join my colleague Daniel and me because that session will cover all kinds of ATF good and best practices. So we already have a recording with an introduction online in our playlist, and I'm sure Brad will put that in the description as well.
It's already in the description, actually.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
You were ahead of me. Awesome. So be sure to check out the office hours that we did in the 2 weeks ago, which is an introduction to ATF, like how to get started, what are some introductory or planning best practices, and then we'll go into a deep dive next week, Thursday.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all we have for today. Definitely check out the Platform Academy series. And we are going to be starting up our Rome content pretty soon. I think it starts in maybe a week and a half.
There are some exciting ATF things in there.
There are some good ATF features. Yes. We're going to do an ATF, one of the Rome ATF features in, I think, 2.5 weeks on a live code.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we're going to be doing a lot of Rome things. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Creator Toolbox and Live Coding Happy Hour should run both of them every week through the Rome early availability period. We'll have some blogs out on the blog, and you can get to the blog at devlink.sn/blog. I think that's it. We got one more question coming in. As a developer, how can I know when I change a piece of code that an ATF test is affected? That is a good question. I think that's part of how you name and organize your tests is probably into test suites that affect a specific product. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thanks everybody, and we will see everybody again on this Thursday afternoon. We are doing another live coding happy hour. All right. Yay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having me. Bye, Brett. Bye, all.